As we begin today's episode, I want to acknowledge that Kayla is no longer co-hosting due to recent team changes at Big Sky Economic Development. I'm incredibly grateful for her time on the vault, for the conversation she helped shape, and the energy she brought to each episode. She played a key role in launching this podcast, and we wish her all the best moving forward.
And I think at this moment where so much is being transformed technologically, we see it as an imperative for us to help companies, help individuals in Montana to understand what is going on and how do I meet this moment as things are changing.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
Welcome to The Vault, a Montana-based business podcast where we highlight the people and ideas driving our region forward. I'm your host, Marcel Bruschi.
You're listening to The Vault.
Joining us today on The Vault is Christina Henderson with the Montana High Tech Alliance, a nonprofit, nonpartisan, statewide association focused on helping high-tech companies create and fill high-paying jobs in the state of Montana. So welcome, Christina, to the Vault and to Billings. We're happy to host you here.
I'm always happy to come to Billings. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to have you on. You guys, we just hosted a great event last night here in our Rock 31 space. But before we get into the Montana High Tech Alliance, I'd love to you have such a wealth of knowledge and such a vast array of experience. And we'd just love for the audience to get to know you. Before we we'll get into the High Tech Alliance soon, but let's get to know you.
Sure. Thank you. Well, I grew up in rural central Iowa. My hometown is literally called State Center, Iowa, and is supposed to be the geographic center of the state. So it's
really creative name.
Mm-hmm, good. It is. It's also the rose capital of Iowa. So the town is about 1,300 people, farm country, and my parents were school teachers, and they're very active in community service. And so actually, they were just grand marshals in the Rose Parade. Wow. And I got to go home and see them in the parade, and it was so wonderful. Special. Yeah. So I think, and my dad was the mayor for 3 terms.
Oh my gosh.
Serves on the city council. Both my parents are active in the State Center Development Associations, and my mom was a 5th grade teacher, and my dad was a civics and history teacher, middle school and high school in the community. So I think I grew up with a real ethic and value for community service and giving back and getting really engaged in the community. And so it was really beautiful to go back to my hometown and
I bet that's honored, really special.
And also see, how things stay the same and how they change. So, the school band from West Marshall goes by, and it's like, I was playing that same song when I was in the band in the parade in high school. And yet, you watch the tractors go by and the modern tractors and how much technology is in those and how huge they are, combines. And so it's really, really a treat to go home. And there's a lot of wind power around where I used to grow up. And so all the wind turbines that have sprung up in the time since I was a kid. So
wow.
So I have a real appreciation for rural communities and farming and ranching communities. So I think that's part of why I've loved coming to Montana.
Oh, yeah, because it's similar, rural state, lots of hardworking people that just are involved because they need to get something done. Tell us a little bit more about what was it like? And you talked a little bit about the differences, which I relate to going home now to Ekalaka. It's different when you're there, but it's still it's fun to still see some of those things like the band or the floats that you were on as a kid still happening.
Yeah. It's so great to go home. And what I love too, what's really been impressive about my hometown is that my parents and their peers in the community who serve on those committees, who are on the Downtown Development Association, they're the ones planning the farmers markets, and they get those state grants to improve Main Street. And I've really watched my hometown transform its Main Street since I grew up living there. There's a new facade on the bank, and they'll buy one building at a time and move the development association in and remodel it and then sell it to a business and then move into a new building. And so just gradually over time, they've built this beautiful new downtown, improved the facades. You see, sometimes it's a little bit sad because you'll see, that old house get torn down that's maybe historic, and yet there's a new business moving in. There's a beautiful Victorian home that somebody's restoring. So it's kind of fun to have that personal connection with a place and see it evolve and change, but also it's really beautiful when a small town can still stay vibrant and continue to grow and change and attract new families and yet keep its small town flavor. And so I think, we see so much of that in Montana too, where people really love the places they live and often maybe they'll go away for college or to start their career somewhere else, but many times they're drawn back. Yeah. And I think one of the powerful things that I'm seeing in our tech industry is those entrepreneurs who find a way back to their home community and they've got that tech job, but they're doing it from their basement on that family farm or ranch.
Yeah.
And it's part of the formula that makes them able to come back and stay and raise their kids in that town that they love. So
from the town they grew up in, that their kids then get to maybe experience those traditions like a parade or to be part of some of those smaller schools. They're just different in a way it's like, yeah, I just think small towns are different in a fun way.
They are. And I don't, I feel a little bit of a sadness in some ways that I now live in Missoula, Montana. I'm pretty far away from where I grew up and live in a much bigger town, which has its own, fun aspects. And Montana is just a wonderful place to raise kids. So I have no regrets about that. And yet I do still have a real nostalgia and love for that small town life.
So what did you do? So you grew up in Iowa. Your parents were really involved, which I love and relate to. You just watched them be involved. So I'm assuming you were involved in things too. What did you do? Did you stay? Because if it's small, I'm assuming that there maybe wasn't a college, or what was that? What's next?
No. So State Center is about 30 miles away from Iowa State University in Ames, but I actually went to the University of Iowa in Iowa City. Yeah, I had a real hunger. I was one of those kids that I was so eager to get away to the big university. I kind of wanted to go someplace where I could be anonymous, where nobody knew me, and you could do a little bit of reinvention. Because when you've known the same people
your whole
since
life.
Preschool and you have 40 in your graduating class, everybody knows you or thinks they know you in a certain way. So I was really eager to go off to college, loved college. And I was going to go to college to be an English teacher. So, oftentimes you see what your parents do and you're like, oh, that seems like a nice job. I'll be that.
I'll do that. Maybe different topic, but I'll do that.
Yes. Yeah. So that, maybe has some seeds of why I'm interested in workforce development and showing career pathways to kids, because it's like what you see around you is what you know to do. But I really did enjoy learning in English, and so I thought I'd be an English teacher. I, however, met my now husband in college, and he had ambitions to be a forester. So we moved to Minnesota and then Michigan. He got a PhD in forestry, and I sort of followed along and made it work. So I did teach for 4 years. My first jobs were in very urban schools around Minneapolis. And boy, was that the toughest job I've ever had. I had up to 40 students. These were kids from often homes with poverty and at-risk youth. And so it was very challenging, but
you're fresh out of college.
Fresh out of college, fresh out of the, rural Iowa.
You're like, what is this?
If I'm honest, those kids kind of ate me alive, but it was also such a good learning experience. And so, great for building empathy. And I have such heart for teachers, if not because of my own parents, but also just understanding how challenging that job is and how it's really a calling to be able to serve and educate kids often who are struggling. And honestly, one of the hardest things about it was just the emotional load of what they're wrestling with and carrying that home each night was really tough.
And you can't help everyone. I think that it's like you can do so much as a teacher, but I think they're fabulous humans. I couldn't do it. I have such respect for teachers and all that they do. And I think just even now in an ever evolving, changing landscape with added technology, just the things they have to know. Like I was with my little cousin and she's like, you don't have that app? And I was like, girl, she's like, you're getting old. And I was like, thank you so much. But I mean, they're having to keep up with all of this technology and just it's a lot. And then teach and really you're like making huge impacts on these kids' lives forever.
It's true. It's true. And related to the technology, I think is, just the mental health issues that schools and teachers are facing, and behavioral health, and all of these sort of social and societal issues that are right at the heart of schools that folks have to wrestle with. And I don't know that we did 20 years ago or when I was in school. But one thing that was such a powerful example growing up is we would be, in the Taco Bell in the bigger town over, and people would come up to my parents all the time and say, I had you in 5th grade, to my mom, and you changed my life. I remember you being so kind or helping, and just that it happened all the time. And so understanding the impact that a teacher has and the life-changing impact that a teacher can have and really turning around someone's life was really powerful. So,
and special to see that, like, of your parents, and I'm sure you had that too when you were a teacher, but just to even see that in your parents and having students come up and say that, I think that is a big thing. And you want to be a good influence in their lives, because you might be the only good role model person that they have at that moment in their life, at that whatever age that they're at.
Yeah. It's
like,
so
I look
true.
back and I'm like, there's certain teachers that I'm like, definitely were like game changer for me. Game changing. Some not so much, but I think we all have those.
All of us get that mixed bag, don't we? Yeah. And I actually had my own father as a teacher in school because it was such a small school. So I had my dad 3 different years for history. Yeah. So,
but that's like unique, where you get to see him in his element and something that he's went to school for and teaches, and that's cool.
And my dad was a great teacher. He's retired now, but was really great at his job. But my intention was never to get out of teaching explicitly. But my husband got a job. His first job out of college or out of graduate school was in Escanaba, Michigan. He worked for the Hiawatha National Forest. So we moved to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is a lot like Montana in a lot of ways. So, heavily forested. It's right on the Great Lakes, really beautiful, a lot of culture of hunting and fishing and the outdoors, and beautiful, beautiful place. Part of our journey has just been going to places with lots of trees, not so many people, and,
trees.
A lot of natural beauty. And frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way now. But when we moved there, I fully expected that I would get a teaching job, but the reality was there were no teaching jobs to be had. So I substitute taught. There were many schools. There was a local school and neighboring communities and local school districts. But I don't know if it's just generational, like that baby boomer generation hadn't retired yet, but there were just no openings for English teachers where I was at that time. And so I was getting very frustrated just subbing, and I was doing a lot of community theater to keep myself entertained while I was.
Did you do theater in high school?
I did do theater in high school.
Okay, tell us a little bit about what plays did you do?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well it was, I refer to it fondly as Dinky Trojan Theater, but we were the West Marshall Trojans, and we had this small theater, and we would do these really corny melodramas a lot of times, but we also did some of the classics like Our Town and Annie and Bye Bye Birdie. So it was Mae Peterson and Bye Bye Birdie, kind of the Jewish mother character. And my mom, she's so funny because now she's like, we had no idea you had that in you. Because growing up, especially now, I'm a little more able to talk to people. I was very quiet and introverted, very studious. And so when I got on stage, I would kind of open up a lot and be much more dramatic.
You got to be somebody else.
I got to be somebody else. That's the beauty of theater. You're not your quiet self. You're a character.
You're a character.
So, or I was Grace in Annie, my senior year. So I did a lot of shows and had a lot of fun. Was like vice president of the drama club and had a lot of fun. Yeah. Yep. And I did the neighboring community theater. We did, can't remember the play, but
it'll come back to us.
Community theater, yeah. And so in Escanaba, I did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and did Our Town again, but that time I was the mother. So it was a lot of fun. Really loved theater.
I love watching theater.
The Crucible, that's the play we did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
so I was one of the young girls. I was Mary Warren in The Crucible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's I remember like reading that, I think. Yeah, we read that.
Yeah, it's kind of a classic in
It is a classic.
English lit classes. So yeah, I love it to this day. And as one of the beautiful things living in Missoula, we have the Missoula Children's Theater. And my son just graduated from high school this year. And his senior year, all of a sudden, he decided to try out for the school plays, had done none of it before. And he was just the Prince Dauntless, and Once Upon a Mattress. And I didn't know he could sing. I didn't know he could do. So I'm really happy that my children are carrying that on too. But yeah, love theater.
And they knew you did it.
They did, yeah. And we had them in Missoula Children's Theater camps and things like that. But, he just didn't, he was on the robotics team in high school, which was great, and did other things. Like a creative a lot of scouting side. In our family, so did other things. But all of a sudden, he found his passion for the stage, and he just loves it. So
good for him.
Yeah. So we're a theater family. That's one of the things I have in common with my husband. We did a lot of it together.
Oh.
Yeah, we actually, so the community theater did the musical State Fair.
Okay.
So we're in Michigan, rural Michigan, and it's all about the Iowa State Fair, which is where I grew up, what I grew up with. And so my husband and I played opposite each other, and he was the local farm boy in Iowa, and I was the singer who came from Detroit. And the weird irony was that I was the only Iowan in this group of Michiganders
that are doing a play on Iowa.
And I was playing the one character who was from Detroit. So that was fun. And my mom sent a copy of the Des Moines Register up so we could use it as a prop. It was great. So we were singing all about the Iowa State Fair. Yep.
And where's your husband from?
So he grew up on the East Coast. He was born in New Jersey.
Oh, so he's he's actually the city kid in this situation.
City kid
and you're the okay.
And I born and raised in the middle of Iowa. So that was funny.
That is funny. But you did it together.
We did it together, and it was a ton of fun. And it was actually my path into business, interestingly. So one of my colleagues in the community theater said, you should go talk to this guy who runs a local marketing agency. He hires actors to voice ads for him. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. So I showed up to voice some ads and basically walked out with a job. Wow. There was somebody that was leaving, and so the owner of this little ad agency asked, would you like to try to learn marketing? And I was like, oh, okay. I had an English degree. Could do creative writing and could talk to people. So he taught me all about marketing, and I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with business.
Wow.
And we would work for the local community college and the local hospital and all of these small businesses, like small manufacturing firms that were in families for a few generations. And their stories were so incredible, and they would create jobs for their neighbors, and they would build these innovative products. And I really got pulled in, which completely surprised me. If you had told me to take a business class in college, I would have laughed at you.
No,
it was not anything I wanted anything to do with it. I associated it with kind of Wall Street and greed.
Yeah.
And really didn't have, my grandpa owned a gas station, so I guess I had some appreciation for small business, but didn't think it was something I would want to do, but it really pulled me in, and I loved it. I loved marketing, working with these companies. And so after about 4 years, I saw an opening for the director of economic development in Delta County.
And is that kind of, you're still in Michigan at this point?
Yes. So in my town, so Delta County is basically Escanaba and a neighboring town of Gladstone. So there's like 40,000 people in the whole county. And so this job was to run the local economic development agency and, help businesses grow, help attract business. And I was like, that sounds fun. I could probably do that.
Yeah.
So I applied for it, and I got the job. And I've been for about a year and a half. I do what you do, but for a smaller community. And
were you solo? Like, did you have a team? And I think people fall into economic development. I think there's very few that are like, I'm going to be an economic developer.
You didn't really have that on the radar.
No one says that. Yeah, no one says that.
Nope. You kind of wander in, and it catches you. I was the only employee of the Economic Development Agency, but we were co-located with the Chamber of Commerce and the Tourism Bureau. And so I was in that chamber building, kind of similar to what you have here at Big Sky Economic Development, where all of us would work together and we would share services, share staff. The job service was involved as well. So it was great, and it was such a good learning experience. But I think there were two big takeaways for me that were really relevant when I moved to Montana. So the first was I started to notice that a lot of the job creation was happening with these advanced manufacturing companies. So the economy in the Upper Peninsula, similar to here, had historically been natural resources based. So a lot of mining, a lot of agriculture, forestry, tourism. And it was evolving, though, in these small manufacturing firms that were, making firearms or making car parts for Detroit and things like that. And in Michigan, there's a foundation, the Edward Lowe Foundation, that studies entrepreneurship. And in particular, they've focused on second stage companies. So companies that were more than $1 million in revenue, more than 10 employees, and had ambition to grow. And they realized that these were the job creators. They made up a relatively small percentage of the overall businesses, but they were having a outsized impact on creating jobs. So they started to recognize them with this Michigan Companies to Watch program. And so the winners in our community, I would look at these companies and I'm like, oh yeah, like they're growing, creating jobs. And they were like, there was a composite manufacturer in Rapid River, which was this even smaller town in the county, that had 30 employees, and they were making these giant composite wind turbine blades.
Wow.
And the only reason that company was there is because that engineer had a heart to come back to his community and build this in his hometown and employ his friends and family. And I see so much of that. And there's so much opportunity for that in rural Montana, for example, of maybe it's not logical as a business decision. Maybe this isn't the most obvious place where you would put a manufacturing company, but I love this community and I want it there. And I will make it work. And it was working. They were getting recognized. And so we started one of the initiatives is I partnered with one of the largest local employer, and we started a manufacturing roundtable. And so all the local manufacturers would come together, and in some ways they might be competing, but really it was about those peer connections, peer learning, and how can we work together to solve common problems? How can we solve the issue that our health insurance is really high, or we're having trouble finding talent. And so it's just such a powerful group and a powerful example of how companies could work together. And then I also had this great understanding of the importance of those second stage companies and those high growth, kind of high tech companies in building an economy and transforming an economy. So fast forward, my husband got his dream job in Montana working for the U.S. Forest Service. I'd never been to Montana, but I was like, that sounds like an adventure. I'm up for it. So we moved to Montana. And while we were out in Missoula, my husband and I came out like in December to look at houses. And we went
came at a good time. Like, it's like you're not coming in like July when it's...
I can, I've been through an Iowa winter to Minnesota winter. I can do a Montana winter too. But we went into the Missoula Chamber of Commerce, and they had a brochure for the Bureau of Business and Economic Research. They have their annual economic outlook seminars.
Yes, we all attend.
In January. Yep. Love them. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'll come to Montana. I'll get to learn about economic development and what's happening in the different industries in the state. And I could start to meet people and find a job, because I did not know a soul in Montana at that time. So my mom and I drove out in January with my 3-year-old son across the mountain passes, which frankly was terrifying. I couldn't even bring myself to drive. I had to make my mom drive because I was so scared to drive in the mountains, but we made it out. We were in our rental house with no furniture, and I came out early just so I could go to this event.
The BBER event.
BBER.
Wow.
Yep.
Was it Patrick still at the time?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Patrick Barkey
good. Okay.
And Paul Polzin. And it was 2011, so we were just coming out of the recession, and the economic story at the time was a little bit dire. And what was kind of shocking to me is that, I come from Michigan, where Detroit was just hammered in that recession and was really struggling economically. But Montana was doing even worse. We were 49th in the nation for wages at the time. And I was like, oh, this is an unpleasant surprise. And
like,
so
we just moved here. Good. Okay.
So the economic reality wasn't what I expected. Maybe it wasn't so rosy as what I expected, but I was still all in. And the interesting and fun thing that happened is I ended up getting hired by BBER to run the economic outlook seminars. So I then, I found out they had a job opening, and I was like, oh, I could do that job. And I went to your seminar. So I got hired, and for 3 years I was the marketing director for BBER.
Wow.
And And I got to write an article for the Montana Business Quarterly about second stage companies in Montana.
And you had all of this experience, like from English to this woman saying, hey, you should go check out this marketing job. Got amazing experience. And then seeing, and I think something that you talked about that I just love that you did is bringing all of those manufacturers together.
Yeah.
Because I just think that's so powerful of industry coming to the table the same to do something together, because they don't want to poach each other's talent. They want enough so that they're not they're just not hopping from one, manufacturer to the other, that they really can cultivate their people and make it more of a destination for manufacturing.
Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah. And that had complete seeds in planting what my interest in doing what I do now and the vision that I had for it.
And so your marketing for BBER.
And my marketing, right.
Working with Patrick.
It all came together. Yeah, Montana's been such a place of opportunity for me. And it was so interesting how those different threads of my own story, which
just kind of fit in.
When you're living it, it seems random, or it seems like, I didn't have a direction. But then you look back and you're like, all those threads really weave something that makes a lot of sense. But
especially, I think I've just noticed lately, but it sounds like from yours too, it's like if you just kind of just let it happen a little bit, like, oh, what is this what is this opportunity going to provide to me? And now looking back, it's like, oh, it gave me these skills of like economic development, marketing, bringing people together, making change. I just think that's really impactful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So in about my second or third year at the Bureau, we were thinking about who to have for our keynote speaker. And while I was working in the College of Business, I also took advantage of the opportunity to get my MBA. And I was, because I'd had an English degree and it wasn't really my background, I was really interested in having a more foundational knowledge of business, how it worked, how to read balance sheets and things. And I was also passionate about entrepreneurship, having seen what I'd seen working in business. And so I became president of the Entrepreneurship Club. I took the entrepreneurship classes, and we would bring in guest speakers all the time. And so one of the guest speakers who helped coach our entrepreneurial students was Greg Gianforte, who had just sold his company Right Now Technologies in 2012 for $1.8 billion. But he was so generous with his time, and he would mentor entrepreneurs all across the state. And so he was very encouraging to our club and had spoken. And so I suggested to Pat Barkey, maybe Greg Gianforte would want to talk. So we asked him, and he did. And so he came on the Economic Outlook tour with us. This was in that window between selling the company and running for office. And so we went around Montana, and he happened to mention in Butte that he was part of a group of business people in Bozeman who were starting a new association for high tech in Montana. And there was just something that spoke to me, and I was like, that's my job. That's what I want to do. Because I saw, working with the economists in Montana, what was happening with high tech. So Right Now Technologies was the epicenter, but we could see in the economic data the impact on wages in Gallatin County when that company sold, because all those people with equity had a windfall when it happened. And so it just shot up. And I was like, if we can grow this industry,
there's something here.
There's something here. Like, we can transform the economy. We can go from being 49th in the nation in wages to being, growing and making a living wage for people. And Greg's message when he was speaking in these communities on the Outlook tour was, the great thing about technology is you're not limited by geography. You can do this anywhere. If you can get access to the internet, you can build a global company from
the basement on the farm.
Exactly. Or, in his case from Bozeman, but he was really the proof case that, you can come here to Montana and you could build something globally impactful in the tech space from a relatively rural state.
Wow. So right place. I mean, what an experience to be in there right. Cause you were at U of M. And I love I met some of their business teachers, and they brought students to the Montana Chambers Women in Business Summit. And I'm like, now I follow them on, not the students, but the program. And they just are doing tons of things for their students, which is great to get experience. But then you guys are getting access to these really amazing speakers, connections. And now he's governor.
Yeah.
So what a path. Right. What a path.
Yeah. It was such a great opportunity. And I cannot say enough good about the the MBA program and the business school at the University of Montana. And what was such a gift to me coming into the state as an outsider is it's such a hub of a business network, and you had these opportunities to get to meet the most impactful businesses in the state and to build a network. And they had all these great luncheons. You could go sit and have lunch with the Gianfortes, or I had the chance when Max Baucus was still in office in 2013, he had his economic summit in Butte, which was cool. Thousands of people.
I remember hearing about that.
And like Elon Musk came.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. I was still in high school, but yeah. It was a big deal. Like the whole state knew about it. It was a huge
deal. And yeah, I mean,
from every little corner, we all knew what was going on.
And he had such seniority on the I think, finance committee that he could bring these very powerful business people to Butte, Montana. And as a student, I was like, yes, I'll raise my hand and volunteer. And given that I was coming back to business school after having been in the workforce, I had some actual marketing skills and other things to contribute. So I helped design the program and I was on the technology team. I led the technology team. So we were, live streaming social media and posting all of that. So it was a lot of fun. But I cannot say enough how important it is for students to recognize, don't just focus on your academics. While that's important, take advantage of those opportunities you have as a student to volunteer, to meet business people, to build your network, because that's really where the great opportunities are going to come.
They are.
And, and so
I think that's so well said, because students get people at the schools are bringing some of that in. And I think that sometimes just from experience of watching, it's like, I'm not going to that. Like, I'm busy, I have homework. And I'm like, that is, homework is one thing, but life is much harder. Like once you're an adult, there's a lot of other things and you can take on more than I think you can when you're in college. And it's like putting yourself in maybe those awkward networking, uncomfortable situations where it's like, oh, you can go to this networking thing that the college is hosting with businesses. It's like, just go do it. It's awkward. Your first, when it's awkward, but just go do it.
Go do it.
Go do it.
And, and I've had so many interns over the years, and I had an intern working with me when I was leading this technology team. And I remember teaching him how to hand out his business cards and how to meet people. But it was phenomenal. Volunteer and sign up for these things and find people who can mentor you and coach you and show you the ropes. I remember when I got into marketing, getting out of teaching and getting business cards. And I'm like, what do I do with a business card? I don't know how do I give this to somebody? What's the etiquette?
Just walk up and
I have no idea, but it's just funny to look back on, how nerve-wracking it can be when you're trying to do it for the first time. And so, these things are really low stakes and people love to help students and love to support students. And so take advantage of that dynamic when you're young, and
because businesses do, and people are like, oh my gosh, let me help you. They want to, especially in Montana. I haven't lived out of Montana, so I can't speak to that, but I feel like Montanans are like, oh my gosh, let me help. What do you want to do? Where do you want to maybe intern? Let me help you do that. People are so waiting, thrilled to do that.
It's very true.
Which is cool.
Very true. Yeah. So, part of my job at BBER was to go pick up and drive Greg Gianforte to the airport. And so I struck up the conversation. I was like, oh, you mentioned this, that you're going to hire a director for this tech association. Can you tell me about that? And I would like to apply. And so he ended up introducing me to the founding board that he was chair of. And I got hired. And that was my first job. I got hired before I even finished business school. So I still had a semester left to go. But they hired me as the founding executive director, and so the board was all in Bozeman, but I was living in Missoula, but it was fine because our kind of key tech hubs at the time were Bozeman and Missoula. So I just traveled, worked remotely, or I had an office, but then would just serve companies all across Montana. And we grew in about the first year, 18 months, from 20 founding member companies to more than 200.
Wow.
We still sit about there today. Yeah.
And this was the Montana High Tech Alliance where you're at now.
This was the Montana High Tech Business Alliance. Yes.
Wow.
That's us.
Yeah. I love that you put yourself and you're like, hey, I want to talk to you about that. I want to apply and I'd be a really great fit. I just think that that's good and cool.
Well, and to be fair, it also just was so aligned with my own passions and interests and
go for what you want.
Yeah. I'm not a terribly aggressive person, although I can be outspoken, but there have just been certain times in life where it's like, yes, that's what I want. That's what I'm going to go for. Yeah.
Because why not? Like they're starting it. They need someone. They want a good fit. And you were in that space. You're in Montana. You're in you have that great data background too from working with BBER marketing. So what was that like to grow that? I mean, you're the founding executive director of the Montana High Tech Alliance. You have a new board, like you're getting a board. There's a board in place. Like, what was that like?
I think it was equal parts exhilarating and terrifying.
Yeah.
So I still am super passionate about it. And I love learning and I hate to be bored and I love to start things. And so what's great about this industry is tech is always changing, evolving and growing. And right now we're at a moment of just huge technological change, very dynamic time. And so I'm still 11 years later, really passionate about what I do and excited to be serving this industry. But I also to be honest, I feel like the board kind of took a chance on me. I was not, I'd had some leadership experience, but not super deep. I was not even done with business school.
But you had led organizations
I had led organizations. And, and I think sometimes if you've got that passion and fire in your belly, that's about as important as do I have, 10 years of experience doing this. And what I also had that was a real gift is I had Greg Gianforte as my mentor and partner in helping to grow this. And I cannot say enough about how important that was. And to this day, what strong advocates Greg and Susan Gianforte are for the tech industry and what great partners they are for the Montana High Tech Business Alliance. But, basically Greg would go around the state helping and mentoring all these entrepreneurs, helping them get their businesses off the ground. And then he would tell them, okay, and you have to go join this alliance. And so he would just send me all these contacts as he met people. He was the best recruiter. And I would sign them up and then we would, we'd plan these events together. They've hosted a number of events for us over the years. And so we'd have these great events for networking, just very similar to what we partnered on last night. And just the energy in the room is great. And it's a mix of longtime business people and community partners who are serving businesses and also the new transplants, new people coming into Montana, new people who are launching businesses. And so it's very dynamic and exciting. And in 2016, published in 2017, we saw in the economic data, so the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City studies entrepreneurship as well. And for 4 years running, Montana was the #1 state for startups per capita in the nation, according to the Kauffman Index. And so one day my board said to me, we should try to get the Kauffman Foundation to do a case study on Montana. Because don't we want to know why?
Yeah, why are they putting this out? Yeah.
Why are we at the top of this list? And I was like, yeah, okay. So I flew out to Kansas City to attend a conference and I got myself a meeting with a researcher, the head of research at the Kauffman Foundation. And I pitched him on, don't you want to come to Montana?
And I'm sure, of course, he's like, yeah.
It's never a hard sell to convince somebody to come to Montana on business. And so
absolutely, they love it.
Able to parlay a family rafting vacation on the side, which didn't hurt,
which is great.
Yeah. So Dr. Yasmoto Yama came out to Montana on 2 different occasions and we interviewed 40 entrepreneurs in Montana. So 10 in Missoula, 10 in Bozeman, and 10 across the rest of the state. So rural communities, White Sulphur Springs, all kinds of places, just to find out what were they leveraging to build their companies in terms of resources and networks. And then also what was it that brought them to Montana or led them to start the business. And the results of that study are still very pertinent today. It was a lot about what is it in our entrepreneurial culture in Montana that creates an advantage to doing business and what's unique about Montana. And what we found was that, Montanans are very hardworking. They're often open to taking risks. I mean, Montana's kind of a risky, dangerous place to live and try to build something.
I think just by,
when I first moved out here, there were 2 different women who were on the Letterman show because they had gone after grizzly bears that were attacking them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay,
go Montana.
Montana's pretty, you got to be pretty tough to live in Montana.
Independent, I think. Yep.
So we're willing to take risks. We fix problems, solve problems, get things done. When you live on a farm or a ranch, you can't hire a consultant to come fix your tractor. You just fix it.
And when you're out in the middle of nowhere, which a lot of places are, they just figure it out
It's
themselves.
on you to do it yourself.
The company, like the tractor company's not coming out.
Right.
Or they are, and it's going to be a couple days. And you're like,
Right.
I need it yesterday because I'm paying today, you know?
Yep. Yep. So that get her done spirit was part of it. It was also about tight networks. And that willingness of Montanans to help Montanans that you mentioned earlier. If you wanted to meet with your governor, your senator, with the, founder of that important local business, often they were very willing to help you, to have coffee with you, very accessible. And you're only 2 degrees of separation away from anybody that you would need to know who can help you in building your business. So that was very powerful too. And so we saw all these advantages. And one of the key findings that Dr. Motoyama had written in was, be Montana. Don't try to be Silicon
Montana,
Valley. Don't try to emulate Boulder or some other place. Embrace what makes Montana special and the advantages that come with building a business here, and double down on that. And that's been part of our ethic, I think, in building our tech community ever since. And as I think we're similar to you guys in that we're often a point of contact for people when they're looking at Montana, looking at doing business in Montana. So we're sometimes their introduction to
the
Montana.
State. And I think, I think Paul says it too, and I really like it. It's like, we want them to be just a good fit for Montana. Like I'm sure there's other companies that could come in, but are they really like a genuinely good fit for the state? I don't know. Sometimes yes, but you want to make sure that they are, so that our Montana values and all those things that you just mentioned, that we stay Montana.
It's so true. And, and I've been talking to entrepreneurs lately or I guess, either newcomers or folks who are looking at coming in, and they can be from Washington, D.C. or New York City, but that doesn't matter as much as who they are and what do they value. So if they say things like, oh, I'm really happy to drive, I'd be happy to drive to see different cities in Montana, that's a good sign.
Good.
Yeah, the willingness to go the distance is very important to do business here, I think.
And when you drive in Montana, like you're not just in traffic for hours, you're like getting miles under your, on the tires. You're like traveling
at 80 miles per hour. Yes, it is far, but it is, it's a privilege to get to go to those places, and you're going to fit fine. If people say, I feel it's really important to go there and to be willing to go there and see what's happening and meet with my clients, it's like, yes, you will do good in business here because that's really valued. Or if you can sense that people are relational and not transactional.
Based. Yes, I think that's another good one.
That's essential too.
Relationship, not transactional. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that, and just that alignment with, do you have a good work ethic? Are you willing to, and what's great about it is we can kind of point to this study and say, this really matches up with who we are and what we're about. And here are the selling points. And
I love that they came in and did that.
Yeah.
That's
it was
cool.
so much fun. It was one of my favorite projects, and I would love to do it again, honestly, like repeat
and see if it's like the same or what's maybe changed or been added.
Yeah. And
would be interesting.
What's the same and what's new, and what are the challenges that folks are facing now. But
yeah. So we've talked a little bit. I mean, we're talking about the Montana High Tech Alliance, but maybe for those that are like, oh, I'm a tech business, or I'm like, what really are you guys doing on a day-to-day or year-long basis? And who are the types of people that are good fits to be members of the Montana High Tech Alliance?
Yeah. So some things have not changed from the beginning. So we are really about connecting and bringing people in the tech industry together to meet their peers, to help high-growth entrepreneurs in particular solve problems, find opportunities, find talent, find support as they're working to grow their businesses in Montana. So we have regular networking events. We connect people virtually as well, but we're really about being one of those resource connectors. So it's not so much that we provide specific programs to support them. We direct them to the programs and services.
Which is a huge lift because you know of all of those things and you're aware.
We try to, yeah. So we try to keep informed, and things always are evolving and changing. So being aware of who are the right people to help, and then helping to match make those opportunities. Or we're kind of a point of contact a lot of times, where the universities will call us up and say, hey, we have this new funding opportunity. Do you know any companies that might be a fit? And we can direct folks to them, or even great. Like media calls, we want to do a story. Do you have any good good leads on that, we can make introductions to businesses. So just a lot of it is opportunistic and just really focusing in on the particular needs of the folks who are knocking on our door. We're often contacted by job seekers. From the beginning, we've had a high-tech jobs board, and it's evolved and changed, but to this day, you can go on our high-tech jobs board and find more than 100 jobs at any given time. We proactively manage that, fill it with internships, mid-level, senior-level positions from our member companies. And
so it's just a really great like hub of information.
It is, yeah. Yep, and we have resource guides as well on different resources and career pathways, things. So we try to serve as a resource for talent. And then we also do a lot of storytelling. So we write a lot of articles. We've produced high-tech industry surveys, the entrepreneurship study that I mentioned.
The marketing and English coming together.
The marketing and English, yep. Still, and to be honest, like that's one thing that we've really focused on as an association that I think is unique. Is I tend to hire English majors and hire writers. So my communications coordinator, Melissa, has a creative writing degree from the University of Montana, and she's phenomenal. But I think, finding folks who can tell stories is really important because that's powerful. Such a key piece to helping businesses find the support that they need and to help folks understand what it is they do. In the early days, I would say it's not as vital now, but in the early days when we first started, it was challenging a lot of times for Montana entrepreneurs to make the case for why it made sense for them to be in Montana. And so they were battling this perception that how could any viable business be located in Montana? And so part of our goal was to gather the evidence and in a very journalistic way to say, oh, well, this person has, they were in Y Combinator, or, they have millions of dollars in funding, or they have this team that's incredibly skilled, or they have intellectual property. Like,
so
we
they're
were
like some
gathering
success
the
stories.
evidence, making the case, and showing Montana's not just some fly-by-night state where you'd, without, like, we have these really substantive businesses and this really
genuine,
we're becoming a tech hub, and we have companies like Right Now Technologies, or the Photonics Hub in Bozeman, or you have advanced manufacturing, companies like KOA and Billings that
headquartered
has an incredible core of technology at the heart of that company. And
they're very data driven.
Realize they're here. They don't know they're in Billings, or they don't know these companies that this is
founded
in Montana.
Here and headquartered, which we've had Toby on, and she's great. And I think they were under construction when we had her on, but that facility is stunning, but they're so data and technology driven to make decisions and do things, and that allows them to continue to grow and really do really big things for KOA.
Yeah, and they've been a member of the Alliance for quite a while, and their engineers have come to our Billings events when we have them, and there's this definite emphasis on both digital marketing and building their custom software that powers those campgrounds. So, I mean, I
love that you've woven those like clients and your membership into those success stories. So I think like those are on your website if people want to like learn more about some of those Montana companies. I think that's really cool. And advanced manufacturing is huge. I think that's something we've been talking about too. And like MMEC is great. Patty and Lane are amazing. I'm waiting to get him on here too. I keep telling him next time he's in town. But I think there's so many unique companies that are producing like unique products too that have a technology nexus that are global. What's Power Grip?
Absolutely.
TKI, Toscano. I mean, there's just so many cool advanced or like manufacturing companies in our just even here locally.
Oh, it's
in Yellowstone County. Yeah.
Yeah. And and I think that often those types of companies and what we found from the beginning is that tech companies in general are hidden from the public in a way that like Main Street businesses are not. So, your downtown Main Street businesses, they have signs out front. You would patronize
You're buying like
them.
a product.
But tech companies and advanced manufacturers, like they're often like hidden in the business parks, or they're in buildings without signs, and often on the outskirts of town. And so people don't realize what's in their own community and what's their own backyard. So part of our goal has been to make those stories more visible. And part of it is to just celebrate and champion the success of these businesses that are growing and creating jobs in our own communities. Part of it is from a workforce standpoint, making, young people or professionals or job seekers more aware of who's out there hiring and what do these companies do and why would I love to work there. And what we've found over the years is there are some companies that I think we're about the only source of information on what they've done, or we've written the article that you can find about it. Yeah. And we've written articles on things like Lewistown, Montana has a very vibrant manufacturing cluster. And we did a series of articles on those companies way back in 2015, hired a writer and produced that story. And I think it's still one of the best sources you can find of information on that little region. Lewistown manufacturing cluster. So I think we're in a space that is in some ways underserved or underrepresented and just trying to give visibility to those stories. And one thing I really have to give a shout out to Billings, the Billings community for, is you have a phenomenal media landscape here. You guys here doing this podcast, but Northern Broadcasting and Tom Schultz.
We adore all of them.
Montana Talks and the business press. Yeah. I feel like there were times when I would be beating on the doors of the press trying to get them to cover stories in Bozeman. Billings, it's there's just a real eagerness to support and amplify the stories of businesses that I think is a unique asset in the state. And so thank you for your
I think that's a good point
for telling the stories.
To do that. I think we've got some good leaders in that space, like Aaron Flint, Taylor Brown and that crew over there, and Courtney, that crew over there. They're just Evelyn with Big Sky Business. Yeah, there's some good. And then our other mainstream, media that does stories as well.
Yeah. And I don't mean to diminish what other communities are doing. Yeah. I have just found from the beginning that, we found such great partners in the Billings media landscape to giving visibility to these stories and telling these stories. So,
but it takes sometimes people like you or big us in ways of pushing for that too a little bit, too. Because I think sometimes the companies, because why would you, if you're starting a tech company, why would you even know who to even contact at some of these places, or think oh, I should go on this radio show, or I should maybe do a news interview to talk a little bit about my company because I'm the one passionate about it. I'm starting it, creating it. I can tell the story, but I just think sometimes it's helping them tell their own story, which is what you guys are doing.
Right. And there's something powerful about it in that we're a neutral third party. I mean, kind of neutral in that we're out to tell a positive story about Montana business. We don't really have ulterior motives or we're journalistic in the way we write, but we're not necessarily don't feel like we need to air negatives at all. But we can be that trusted source of news that can tell your story that's different from how your marketing team would tell your story. So, as a company, a startup, a growing technology company, you may have your own marketing that you're doing that's trying to explain what's great about you. But I think for us to be able to tell your story and to tell it in the context of the greater community and what's happening, and to understand, what are those proof points? How do we make the case for why you're a company worth watching or why you're a great place to work? I think there's unique power in what we can do as that separate voice.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And you also host, so we mentioned it a little bit, we hosted an event with you all here in the space. We're Montana High Tech Alliance members, making sure we're staying up to date on our dues. But talk to me a little bit about some of those events, because it sounds like you've created a lot of these things for the Montana High Tech Alliance, but taking some of those experiences in your past to now create this network of people and clusters in different parts of the state.
Yeah, so we have different ways that we pull people together and engage them. So one is just those networking events and happy hours. And so it's a chance both to just meet new people and engage in the community, have more people understand what you're doing. But also we will have targeted roundtables or informational sessions where it's you get that experience of sitting at the table with your peers and being able to share challenges, opportunities, and information and just helping one another to do business here in the state and to grow collectively what we're all doing. Or we'll have issue-specific roundtables and topics that we'll address. During the pandemic, we had the opportunity to really build out our skills in virtual events. We do a lot of informational webinars. We just did one, for example, on legal issues related to developing software with AI and had an attorney speak to what are the things you need to think about if you're developing your products using these
And what a great
automation
value
tools.
add for membership, because you're not paying for that additional training to hear from
It's
industry
free to
expert.
free to members. And we do have a non-member ticket price. So we did have about a third of our participants were non-members who paid to join. So it's a really great value and great information. And I think at this moment where so much is being transformed technologically, we see it as an imperative for us to fill that gap and help companies, help individuals to understand what is going on and how do I meet this moment, and and how do we grow and adapt as things are changing.
Are there other things that you guys are working on, that you're doing, that you're excited about in this next year and a half?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's happened in the last 2 years, so we've always focused on workforce, and access to talent has been a key issue for our members from day one. And we realized that we needed to do something more robust. And so we started or brought in an affiliate organization, the Montana Jobs Network, that's focused on workforce. And we've had great partnerships with higher education, and now we're extending that to include K-12 education and a broader variety of education partners. And so that organization is really about, with the Montana Jobs Network, helping Montanans to find access to these high-paying, high-growth careers, and finding jobs not just that are, I guess, in demand, but also things that you'll really enjoy and that are a good fit for your skills and interests, and that you could do in your home community. One of the misperceptions that people have, I think, about the tech industry is that it's all about being a computer programmer with a 4-year degree, and that all these jobs are highly technical. And the reality is they're not. And so there's a variety of pathways into tech. You can have, just get into some of these positions right out of high school, or while you're in high school, you could get a 2-year degree or certifications, or go on and get a PhD if you want and go back and work in tech. But there's a variety of positions. We need people to do human-centered jobs like marketing and human resources and user experience design, where you really have to understand people and psychology and be a good communicator. We need business development people who can sell products. And then we also do need those technical people. And some of those technical people will be at computers, working with data, programming with AI, and others will be out in the fields, putting up sensors and
doing like the So I think we need all
tractors. Right. We need all kinds. Or in advanced manufacturing, I think a lot of people don't realize that these are very clean, highly skilled, exciting jobs to get to work on CNC machining or welding and things. And so
we were at the hemp place in Fort Bend. They have this, which was so cool, because hemp's not a Southeast, maybe a little bit, but not as much. And what they're doing in Fort Benton is really cool, but they also have they call it the bumblebee because it's yellow, like a robot that like moves, lifts and stuff. So it's taking away that tedious physical, like hard manual labor, but people have to operate it, right? And they have to know how to use it. And so I think jobs like that are unique are just like, there's so much going on, like you were saying.
Oh, I would love to see the hemp robot. I have a special place in my heart now for robotics. We just got to see it.
Okay. We didn't get to see it working. But I mean, like Red Ox Gym has a really cool new piece of equipment, working with MMEC to get it. And it like is laser and it cuts the fabric. And he has a team member that, is really championing and knows how to run it, a couple, but it just the accuracy, and it removes some of the human error on product, but you still have that team member and that person that doesn't have to do the cutting and all of that. They just manage
and
this
get
piece
the carpal tunnel from repeated use industries.
Exactly.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Atomic Industries is another one here, and Travis flies like so under the radar, but like such cool stuff that he's doing with his crew just out kind of in Lockwood.
Yeah. Okay. So you've given me a great list.
There's some cool. I'm like, there's some
we need to pull in and tell stories about. It's so exciting. This is one of the best parts of the job, I think, is just getting to see what these companies are doing. So I mentioned earlier, my son joined the Missoula robotics team, and that is a program that I really want to amplify. I know you've got. We were talking last night at the meeting about the Lego League, first Lego League robotics.
Okay.
There's 3 different levels. First technology challenge is kind of mid-level robots. And then what our other teams are building at this first FRC level is these industrial scale robots. And those students are doing the CAD design, they are machining parts, they're 3D printing and assembling, they're doing machine vision and programming. And it is just such an incredible hands-on program for students to learn these workforce skills. And we have students that have gone into then 2-year machining programs at Gallatin College or our engineering programs at other universities in the state. And it's just such a fun competition. These robots are then like shooting baskets and climbing monkey bars and competing against robots from other states. And I just, I think if we can help support our kids in learning these hands-on skills, then they can walk into our workplaces and help run those robots.
And I think the cool thing about the opportunity for students like growing up now and kids growing up now is they're surrounded by it. Completely. I think there's benefits and there's very much disadvantages to it, like we talked about earlier, but they have to learn how to use it because they use it in school. They're using like technology and a lot of things that they do that we didn't necessarily have growing up. So I think that they're coming in with just a little bit quicker learning on some of it because they've just grown up learning how to do it. And I think, too, it makes me even think of like healthcare. They have sim labs. Even at the new medical school here, Billings Clinic, I'm sure Intermountain too, but they have simulations that people are having to program and that runs scenarios that these, like nurses or students are having to then deal with X situation because of this technology that's allowing them to do it, which is really unique and cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You had asked me earlier, Marcelle, about who belongs as a member.
Who are your members?
Who should our members be?
We went down a long rabbit hole. Yeah.
And I don't think I ever really answered that as I got off track. But I think from the beginning, we've kind of defined high tech as companies that make or sell high tech products. We include e-commerce, we include advanced manufacturing and technology services like professional services related to tech. And about 80% of our membership is folks who work in that tech space. And then another 20% is affiliate organizations like Big Sky Economic Development or attorneys, accountants, like folks that can serve those tech companies and provide that expertise in those important services, or educational departments and colleges who are helping to build that next gen workforce. So all of those folks are members. We also are a community for those folks that might be working remotely or are solopreneurs. Maybe they're working for companies elsewhere or their companies are global and aren't necessarily local, but they can find a peer group and a community through the High Tech Business Alliance. We're building out these local chapters, which is what we were working on tonight. So we have one in Billings. We've got Bozeman, Missoula, Flathead. We're working on Great Falls and Helena and other communities. So opportunities for folks to meet more frequently with other peers in the tech industry. And one thing that's very important to us too, and I think it's a shared value, is that we don't think that tech only belongs in those hub cities, the university towns like Bozeman, Missoula, and the Flathead, although we do have a lot of members in those communities. Like the opportunities from tech can really benefit the whole state of Montana, including rural communities, especially as we look at workforce opportunities. And, we mentioned the example of that, tech entrepreneur or tech worker working from home on the ranch. Or if you look at our rural cooperatives, they are deploying people in tech-related jobs, whether it's out installing fiber in the field or working in the home office. You've got so much tech that's getting into agriculture and mining and these traditional industries, energy production with whether it's so renewables or traditional.
A lot going on in that space.
We've got a career pathways resource guide on our website, and we're working on expanding that out because the national CTE standards have been updated recently. So we're trying to match what's happening at the national level, but it's also giving us an opportunity to highlight additional career paths that we didn't already have on our list.
That's great.
That I think are really relevant to a lot of the rural communities with ag tech, with energy, and some of these some of these fields that I think it's very important because a lot of times we'll come and we'll talk about tech jobs. And if people feel like, oh, well, I'd have to move to Bozeman to do that, it kind of shuts them down because they're like, I want to stay here. I want to live where I grew up, live where I live. And so if we can highlight ways that they can, whether it's through entrepreneurship or through finding the companies locally who are doing this work, I think it's a really valuable message that this is what tech is. It's us working in our communities, and it's not something that we're importing from out of state, but it's something that's homegrown and has Montana values baked in.
I really love that. It's been so great to have you on and hear your story, talk about the Montana High Tech Alliance. I like to just end each episode with a couple rapid fire questions, and then we'll share where we can find you, get connected, all of that good stuff. So if you had to describe Montana's tech community in just a few words, what would you say?
Exciting, dynamic, friendly.
I like that. And
inclusive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think friendly is a big one, and I think that kind of goes to the Montana values you talked about earlier. Is like Montanans want to help each other, and I think that's really special. My next question: what advice would you give to someone building a business or a career in Montana's high tech space?
Reach out for help. Get connected. Get involved. I think sometimes we can get isolated trying to solve our problems ourselves, and one of the great things about Montanans is they're very self-reliant and very
independent.
I will figure this out, independent. And, we don't necessarily expect someone else to do it for us. We're going to do it for ourselves. And yet the flip side of that positive trait is that maybe you don't ask for help when you'd be better off asking for help. And, use your community, ask your neighbors, reach out and get involved, because sometimes you may be wrestling with a hard problem that somebody else has a resource they could help you with, or know somebody that could help you. So ask for help.
I like that. That's really good. My last question is what's one of your favorite things to do in Montana?
My family loves hiking, and we love staying in Forest Service cabins. So
because those are pack it in, pack it out, right? Or
it depends. I mean, there's all different ones. Some of them are very primitive, and some, have indoor plumbing and electricity. So they run the gamut. But that's something that I never had in the Midwest. We just didn't do that or have access. But they can be very hard to reserve. You have to reserve them 6 months in advance.
Wow.
But it's such a joy. You go in. It's often in beautiful wooded area, and you bring your, it's like camping. You have a campfire, you stay as a family, and you just kind of get away from it all.
And you're in the outdoors, in the trees.
Yeah. One of our favorite ones is right near Glacier. Yeah. Trees are a theme. A lot of our family vacations revolve around trees.
Funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Well, where can people get connected, learn more with you and the Montana High Tech Alliance?
Yeah, well, we have our website is probably the best space. So mthightech.org is our website, and our Montana Jobs Network is linked through there too. You can join as a member, find under our resources tab. We have Find a Job, so you can find our jobs board through that URL as well, and all kinds of resources to help. And then we're on social media. We've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Cool. Wow. Yeah. And I just encourage anyone listening, if you are in Montana, get involved, join. I think it's a great network to be part of and to just learn more about. And you never know what connections come from attending one of the events, whether it's virtual or one of the in-person events. So thank you so much for joining us today on The Vault.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great to have you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to The Vault. Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway or Instagram at TheVault_201. Or check us out on our website, thevault@201.com, where you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. See you next time.